Okay, Swadee Krap. So, good morning. My name is Supparat Sivapetchranat, Singhara na Ayutthaya. I'm currently the Chief Product Technology Officer, and I was also the Chief Technology Officer for QIDC. So, as you heard this morning from the Minister of ICT or Digital Economy, Thailand is positioned strategically well to achieve the digital economy goal. The fundamental of digital economy is based on four main pillars. The first pillar is obviously connectivity. The second pillar, as an infrastructure, is data center and cloud services. Number three, on top of connectivity, on top of data center and cloud services, number three is content and media. And number four is the community, is the people. Thailand does have a great opportunity to achieve its goal, but there are challenges. The first challenge is, how do you take the concept of a digital economy and make it real? The challenge is, how do you take the concept of a digital economy and deliver tangible results? But more importantly, before we enable the economy, how do we enable everybody in this room? So within 30 minutes, I want to talk about a couple of things. The first thing I'm going to talk about is cloud security. I guarantee you that within 30 minutes after you leave this room, you will understand three main things. You will understand how to measure cloud security, number one. Number two, you will understand how to assess cloud security within your organization. And number three, you will understand the controls required to implement cloud security. But as QIDC is Thailand's #1 data center and cloud service provider, we also want to give you more than just understanding cloud security. We will go into a deep dive about cloud architecture so that you can apply both your understanding of cloud security along with cloud architecture in order to enable your organization to be ready for Thailand's digital economy. But before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about my background. So I've been in True Corporation for about 3 years, but prior to that, I was working in a multinational corporation. My accountability in this particular multinational corporation was to manage a global team. I can say honestly that I'm probably one of the few Thais that have been entrusted by a multinational corporation to manage a global team. I managed teams in North America, from Los Angeles, St. Louis, New York City, to Toronto, Canada. I've had teams in London. Within Asia, within this region, I managed teams from Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, and obviously Thailand. I'm an engineer by training, was created here, had the opportunity to work as a software programmer in the Silicon Valley, moved to New York City. The business that I'm in is basically in the banking sector. In New York, I was responsible for supporting and providing consultation to the world's largest banks, whereas Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Fidelity, JP Morgan, those were all my customers. I moved back to Thailand when I was about 24 and entered management. At the age of 26, I became a director. At 28, I became the youngest global head of technology. And now I'm currently the Chief Product Officer, Chief Technology Officer, Global Head of Platforms, and Head of Technology Operations. 4 ตำแหน่งครับแต่เงินเดือนอันเดียว That's okay, right? That's why I moved over to help, right? In terms of my education, so I've had the opportunity to live across the world. I've been educated in Switzerland, in the United States, and in Tokyo, Japan. The reason I'm sharing this with you is not because I believe I know something that you do not know. I'm sharing this with you is from a true IDC perspective, we will not share you theory. We will share you from our direct experience so that everybody in this room can benefit from that. So let's get started. What is cloud security? In simple terms, okay? Cloud security, from an official definition, is based on four main things. Number one, it's based on the technology. Number two, it's based on the technique. Okay? Number three, it's based on the behaviors. Okay? And number three, depending on your business, depending on your organization, it is dependent on regulation. Cloud security requirements for the government can differ widely from an e-commerce organization, can differ widely from an insurance or financial services provider. So it depends on four main things: technology, techniques, human behavior, human interaction, and regulation within that particular industry. But let's break that down, okay? There are basically three main pillars of cloud security. The first pillar is about the question. The fundamental question of security is what? What is it that we need to secure? Thus the word security, right? What is it that we want to protect? That's the first question. That question focuses on four main items, okay? The things that we want to protect on the cloud are four main things. The first one is, what is it we want to keep confidential? Confidentiality is number one. Something you must protect when you're on the cloud, okay? Number two is, how do you protect integrity of the data when it is on the cloud, or the integrity of the data that's transmitting from your on-premise environment to the cloud and back and forth. The third thing that you want to protect is authenticity. How do you know that the data or the interaction is secure from authorized sources? At the last part you want to talk about in terms of security, in terms of what you want to protect, is availability. Because if everything's in the cloud, it has to be available. So we're going to go in a little bit more detail on what these four things are. Once you're able to identify and scope what is it that you want to secure, the fundamental next question is, what is it that you want to monitor? Three main things. Threats. Threats are external concerns. Second thing are risks. Risks are internal task activities that you do within your organization. Then number three, what is the weakness? Again, in the technique, in the technology, in the behavior, and in the regulation. What are you vulnerable within your system? Which will vary depending on industry and type of company and business that you are in. The fourth is, well, what are the controls? First two questions about, well, how is it that we measure and what is it that we secure? Second question is, how do we monitor? Number three, well, if we know what we want to secure, if we know what we want to monitor, then how do we protect it? So what controls do we put in place? What mechanisms, what security policies do we put in place? Okay? So let's go one by one, okay? So let's talk about cloud security measurement, okay? The four main things. Very simple, okay? Security measurement of four main things. The first one is, what is it that we keep confidential? Always keep in mind that we're talking about cloud. The biggest concern, the biggest questions I get, whether from banks or governments or enterprise, even to SMEs, is, will my data be secure? They're actually asking, will my data only be seen by myself or those that I trust? So from a confidentiality, what does it mean? It means two main things. If the data is being sent from on-premise to the cloud, is it, number one, accessible by, number two, authorized persons? That's it. If the information is being accessible by those that are authorized, it is confidential. Okay? Number two, integrity. If the data, again, is confidential, it's being accessed and authorized, but along the way, the data that's being sent and that same data that's being received, has it been changed? Has it been altered from on-premise to cloud or cloud to different cloud services? if that data has not been changed, the integrity remains intact. Okay? So again, this is about what is it you're worried about? What is it you want to secure? You want to secure that your data is accessible by somebody that's authorized, that's being confidential. Okay? You want to make sure that along the transmission, the data itself remains intact. You want to make sure that once the data is stored, the data remains intact. You want to make sure that as the data is being processed, the data is intact. Intact ensures integrity. Okay? Third item is an authenticity. Who can actually see the information and who is actually authorized? When you send out information between, let's say, on-premise and a cloud provider, let's say you're using TrueIDC, let's say you're using CAT, let's say you're using AWS, let's say you're using Microsoft, Google, Alibaba, how do you actually know that your data is being transmitted to the right cloud source? That's something you also have to secure. Okay? That's about being authentic, an authorized person. The fourth piece about what is it you want to secure is availability. In cloud security, you'll hear this word quite a lot. Yeah? Why is it important? Usually the thinking of cloud services is that it's on the cloud. What does that mean? Number one, it has to be accessible. But availability is not just about being accessible, it must also be usable. So yes, sometimes the service in the cloud may be accessible. In other words, the service is up. But the required capabilities of that service may not be running. So in terms of four main things, right, going back to the first pillar of cloud security, what is it that you want to secure? The questions you need to ask within your organization from a cloud security standpoint is, number one, am I securing the confidentiality of my data? Is it being accessed by the people I want them to see? Number two, the data that I have within my organization, within on-premise to cloud, or purely on cloud, is that data integrity intact? Is it being manipulated? Has it been changed without the right authority? Number three, the sources within my ecosystem. Whether you use a vendor or in-house, in-country or outside the country, is it from an authentic source? How do I verify that? And number four, how do I ensure the availability of my services or the data or processing power I put on the cloud? Okay? That's the first one. On what is it that you secure? Okay? Once you know what you want to secure, the follow-up question obviously, well then, how do we monitor it? How do we assess our effectiveness of monitoring confidentiality, integrity, authenticity, and availability? Okay? So let's talk about cloud security assessment. Okay? So first thing you need to understand is basically a threat. Okay? So in cloud security, there's a lot of terminology, right? And it's important you understand the fundamentals of these terminology. Okay? It's important you use the same protocols, otherwise you won't be able to determine the right security policies or the right security mechanisms. So first thing is about cloud security threats, okay? Threats and risks are two different things, okay? The key thing about threats or security threats, threats are external to your organization, like the WannaCry ransomware, and we'll go through that in a bit, okay? So any external threats that may hinder the four main things, confidentiality, integrity, authenticity, and availability, okay? Second thing is, what is it that you're vulnerable, or what is the weakness of your system, okay? Is it maybe there's no encryption? Is it maybe your firewall rules have not been updated? Is it maybe your patches are not updated? Is it potentially that your admin are not certified from a CSA or cloud security perspective? Is it potentially you don't have any security tools monitoring your network? Right? Is it your architecture? What is your weakness to identify them? Okay? Then the third piece is then the risk. Okay? Again, threats are external, weaknesses are internal, and risks are also internal. But to make its scope clear, risks are the tasks that you perform today. So for example, when I was about maybe 23, I was in New York, and I was managing our production environment for the company I was working for. Yeah, I was 23, and they gave me admin rights to the production environment. Yeah, and it was a Unix-based system. Being an admin and working late at night, I accidentally typed in rm remove /etc. So I removed the entire operating system of our production environment. Yeah, so we were completely down for a day. Yeah, so in terms of risk, I was performing a standard task, but the risk was I did not have the right governance mechanisms in place to check. That's number one. Number two, when I was working in New York, again, I was providing on-site consultation to a very large bank. And they had a lot of issues. So I went on site, and we said, as part of this type of problem, this is how we're going to investigate it, step by step, step by step, step by step. The market data manager, before he even allowed me to even enter the environment, and it was only a test environment, he obviously would not give me access to the production environment. He would make me write every single command line on the whiteboard. And he would challenge me for every single step of the way. Once he was confident, then he took me to his terminal, gave me access to the test environment. This is only test environment. And again, made me repeat the same exercise. He would ask me, what is it I'm going to enter in? And why am I doing it? And if he was okay, I was allowed to enter the commands and press enter. So risk most of the time is actually not the actual hardware infrastructure. It is the quality or the assumptions associated with the task that is done internally. So the human behavior aspect of security, okay? So to recap, okay? We've gone over what is it that we want to secure. Confidentiality, integrity, authenticity, and availability. CIAA นะคิดถึง CIA แต่ว่ามี A 2 ตัว okay คิดง่ายๆ okay what is it that we want to monitor okay นอกบ้านในบ้านนอกบ้าน threats ในบ้าน risk okay จุดอ่อนเราคืออะไร weakness or vulnerability okay so CIAA นอกบ้านในบ้านจุดอ่อนคืออะไร okay once you understand these two fundamental focus areas, it's easy then to understand the mechanisms that you want to put in place for the security controls. The biggest mistakes that I've seen within organizations is that they jump directly and say, what is our security policy? How do we get certified against a set of standards? They enroll the policy, yet they still get attacked, because I've not actually done the pre-work to understand what is it that we want to focus on? What is it you want to secure within your system? How is it you want to monitor your threats, your risks, and your weakness? Okay? Security is a mindset. It's about thinking potentially worst case scenario and then planning for that. So in terms of security controls, there's a couple things, right? The first one is then the security control in itself. Again, what technologies are you willing to use? What behaviors are you willing to accept and tolerate within your control mechanism? Okay? And this is a big debate. If you're in, for example, the startup community, if you're in, for example, the payment gateway business, okay, and you're a security person, the security person will say, let's say I have a True Money wallet app, for example. Okay? The security person says, I want authentication, heavy authentication. I want your baht prachachon. I want your telephone number. I want your address. I want your OTP. Okay? They want the full checklist from security. But security, from a control standpoint, you must balance this with your business. The product people that run it says, I want to make it easy for the application. I want to make it easy for the end user. If the end user has to do 10 different things before it gets access, for example, let's say you're staying here tonight. Maybe you're from Ayutthaya, you're staying at the Centaur Grand in Lat Pao. You made a reservation, and you show up. The good security experience is, can I have your passport? Can I have your name? Here's your room. But imagine if you came to this hotel, or any hotel, and they say, I need to see your bapashashon. I need to see your passport. I need to see your driver's license. I need to see your Facebook account. I need to check in, are you really the right person, right? I need to see other documentation. Can somebody sign and verify you're this person? Imagine the experience that would happen. So yes, security controls is important. But don't forget the reason that you're also on the cloud. The cloud is secure, but the cloud is also there to enable your business. So from a security standpoint, especially from a cloud standpoint, you have to find the right balance between implementation of the security controls versus the type of industry and business that you are in. Okay? The second thing is that the mechanism. Once you have the controls in place, what is the mechanism? Standard mechanisms is you do a process audit, right? Log files, right? You do a maintenance window, upgrading your patches all the time, right? That's the mechanism. And then finally, what is the policy? Right? What is the security policy? Okay? So just to do a quick recap, okay? Cloud security focuses on three main questions, okay? The first question is, what is it I want to secure? Go to the word security, action is secure. What is it I want to secure? CIAA, okay? What is it, how do I want to monitor my CIAA? How is it I want to monitor if my data is still confidential? How is it I want to monitor if my data is still intact with integrity? How do I make sure there's availability and authenticity of my cloud services? Right? นอกบ้านในบ้าน threats, risks, weaknesses. Okay? Once I know CIAA, threats and risks, weaknesses, I need to put in the controls, the mechanisms, and then decide on the right policy, not only from a technical standpoint, that is supportive of your business. Okay? That's just the theory. Okay? So that's only half of it. The other half of security is then, well, who's going to attack me? Right? For example, today, you can buy a CCTV, IP camera with 4G and so on and so forth very easily. They're very cheap now. Some that are less than 1,000 baht, right? But you're buying that because you want to secure what? You want to secure your house. What is it you want to monitor? Maybe you want to monitor the windows, or your baby, or your pets. I don't know. The mechanism is you monitor through your phone, real time, right? But what is it that is more worrisome about that? Who is going to break into my house? So as part of security, we need to know the potential threat agents. รู้เรารู้เขา The most pitfall that we've seen in security is that you have the policies in place, you have the architecture in place, you have the certifying people in place, but there is no anticipation of who is going to attack you. So in the cloud space, there are 4 types of profiles of people that will attack you. Okay? The first one is the anonymous attacker. คนที่มา attack เราที่เราไม่รู้จัก anonymous. Okay? อันที่ 2 คือ the trusted attacker. I trust this person, but they attack me. Right? Number 3, okay, is the malicious service agent. And we'll go into that, what that means. Malicious is somebody that has bad intentions. Okay? And the last one is then the malicious insider. Okay? There are 4 profiles. นะครับ If you set security เหมือนเราเป็นตำรวจเนอะเราก็ต้องเข้าใจโจรเหมือนกัน ไม่ใช่โอ้โหมีครบสมบูรณ์แต่ไม่เข้าใจว่าโจรมันมาช่องไหน Okay? So there are 4 types. These are the 4 fundamentals of cloud security. Okay? Let's go one by one so you know what you're doing. Okay? Okay. Go back. Okay. So the first one is the anonymous attacker, okay? The anonymous attacker is somebody that you do not know, and they don't want you to know as well, okay? They usually know your IP, your website, or where you're hosting your cloud services, okay? Most of the time, anonymous attackers are doing a DDoS attack at the network level, right? A distributed denial of service attack. They're trying to flood your network, okay? Most of the time, this is all they can do because they don't have internal information. So they'll use public access or public networks to gain access to you from a boundary standpoint and attack you, okay? That's just the standard stuff that we see all the time, okay? But again, what's important for Thailand digital economy, right? This type of attacker is basically Thailand 1.0, okay? This is a standard type of attacks you get. You need to understand the different levels of attacks, which we don't really see yet so much, but you'll see more, okay? The other one is basically the trusted attacker, okay? What is this? Sometimes, as a cloud service provider, you may have a customer, okay? If you're in this business, or if you have your own cloud or own virtualization, you might have somebody that is actually a paying customer. So they will pay to get into your cloud, okay? Once they're on your cloud, they will spin up so many resources that'll bring down your cloud services, okay? So from a security mechanism, you are not able to identify them because they're a paying customer, and they enter your services, okay? But they use that and take advantage of that to spin up resources that knocks down your services, okay? That is still an attack, but it is a trusted attack. It's more difficult than an anonymous attack because you have no way to verify it until you are being attacked, okay? So you also have to verify depending on your business. Again, this is the balance on the other side. If you're an organization that's selling services, how do you make sure you're selling to the right people that are not a threat to your IT system? Okay? It's a balance as well. You also have to put the mechanisms in place, the controls in place to verify this. Sometimes this is unintentional. Sometimes it's a staff or internal department that's using overcommitted resources that brings down your services unintentionally. But from a security standpoint, it is seen as a violation of security policies, okay? So that's the second one. First one is the anonymous attacker. Second one is the trusted attacker, okay? The third one is the malicious, right? Malicious has a intent, a negative intent, right? Service agent, okay? Again, going back to what is it you want to secure, what these guys do is at the data level, okay? They will try to listen to the data that's transmitted between your on-premise to the cloud or from your cloud to other clouds, okay? And they will try to change that. So they will try to make sure that your information is no longer confidential, and they'll try to make sure that the integrity of your data is no longer intact, okay? They will focus on that, okay? The fourth one is basically the malicious insider, okay? Doesn't happen so much, but can. This is two main types of people, okay? One type of people, which is a risk, are your vendors. So in Thailand, we have a implementation approach where we use a lot of vendors. And the vendors come into your data center, and they have full access, both physically and software-wise directly to your admins sometimes. So sometimes vendors are a security threat into your own data centers or cloud services providers, okay? Or number two, employees that have left your company, okay? So this goes back to the whole mechanism, right? Verifying nameless and checklist. Sometimes somebody has left your company, but their admin access is still there. So that is a security risk as well. So a malicious insider that has access directly has intent to do something and do harm to your infrastructure, okay? So quick recap again, okay? There's three things you need to focus on, okay? What is it I want to secure, CIAA? What is it I want to monitor, threats, risks, weaknesses, ในบ้านนอกบ้าน, okay? How is it I want to control it, policies, mechanisms, and controls? But you have to test this. Test it against who? 4 different guys. 2 of them are one of them is an anonymous attacker. 2 of them are attackers, right? One's anonymous and one you know. He's trusted, okay? Number 3 and number 4, they will have malicious intent. They have bad intent, okay? One is a service agent, which is usually a software that tries to change the data, tries to make sure it's no longer confidential, and tries to make sure it's no longer has the right integrity. The last one is a potential insider. Could be your third party or a former employee, okay? The final piece though, are we done? The answer is no, we're not done yet. Okay? Security is simple, but you have to connect the dots. From my experience and from our view within True IDC, the most important thing about security is anticipation, the mindset, right? As my fellow colleague said that WannaCry ransomware, right? The patch has been available for quite some time, okay? But if you anticipated, if you had the mechanisms, which I'll show you, that you anticipated the high probability of the attack, you might have considered to install the patch sooner rather than later. So another thing with security is you may have all the right people. You may have all the right processes. You may have all the right techniques, all the right regulations, and so on and so forth. But if you're not able to anticipate, you're still not able to control everything. So let's talk about the type of attacks, right? We know what is it we're going to monitor, what is it we're going to secure, what is it that we're going to control. We know the other side of the 4 different guys, right? The different attackers, the anonymous attacker, the trusted attacker, the malicious agent, right? Along with the insider. But what is their plan? What type of attack are they going to attack us? What is the mechanism that they're going to attack us? Here are some examples of actual threats, yeah, that they will do. The first one is called traffic eavesdropping. Usually a software, and they will try to listen to your conversation, listen to your data, okay? The other one is basically about trying to change your data, okay? The third one is DDoS, which we see already happening in Thailand, okay? But DDoS has 2 main types of characteristics, okay? Number 1, either at the public network layer, where they eat up all your bandwidth, or number 3, at the computing level, where they eat up all your computing resources, memory, okay? Number 3 is efficient authorization. What is this? This is about sometimes granting the wrong person access. Sometimes giving the admin password to somebody that they should not have, okay? And then the last one is about basically virtualization authorization. What is this? This is the one where you are a trusted attacker. You buy access. Let's say if you're a cloud provider, you buy access to a VM on that cloud provider. And you use so much resources that brings down that cloud provider. So you attack at the virtualization layer, okay? So 5 different attacks, okay? So how do you assess this, right? From a framework standpoint, this is the mechanism, okay? You have a risk assessment that you put in place, okay, to analyze your threats, the probability of the threat, okay? So if you are part of a security team, or if you're an IT manager, right? So for example, what we do in True IDC is we have obviously a weekly technology meeting, right? And every week we assess this, okay? So we assess what is the risks or threats to our services. And we have a security team that makes a proposal, right? That based on security, We call it DEFCON 1, DEFCON 2, DEFCON 3, DEFCON 4. เหมือนในหนังอะ right? เหมือนเขาจะทิ้งนิวเคลียร์ right? We do the same thing. What is the threat to our system? We use this framework to do that. Okay? It's very simple, but it's a discipline that you have to do. Okay? So recap. Okay? Security is simple. Okay? But you have to know these key things. Okay? What are these key things? In security, you don't need to have all the answers. I'll say that again. In security, you do not need to know all the answers. There is no security expert in any industry that will guarantee you 100%. But security is about asking the right questions at the right time, anticipation. The questions you need to ask, the first 3 pillars is, what is it I want to secure? Because again, it's a business. You cannot invest in everything, right? It's a business or organization. What is it I want to secure? What is it I want to monitor? And how do I want to implement the controls, the mechanisms, and the policies? Once I have these questions, who is going to attack me? And what do they want? The people, there's 4 types of characters, okay? 2 of them are attackers. The other ones have different intent. Anonymous attackers, trusted attackers, malicious insiders, and malicious service agents. If you know who's going to attack you, well, what's their plan? How are they going to attack me? Okay? 5 different other approaches at a minimum. There's a lot more, right? Are they going to eavesdrop? Are they going to change my data? Are they going to do a DDoS on my network? Right? What is their plan? So that is the fundamentals of security, okay? But security in itself is only theory. All we did here, you can leave today and start doing. But again, it is a balance. So from a true IDC perspective, we don't only look at the security approach, we also look at the architecture approach as well, okay? So in cloud computing, actually, there are about 30 types of cloud architectures, okay, which we're not going to go through today, okay? Most of the architecture that we see within Thailand's digital economy is a fundamental architecture over the last 3 to 4 years, right? In cloud, we know about authenticity, elasticity, right? You can burst up, burst down, horizontal, scale up, scale down. We see this already happening in Thailand, right, the last 2, 3 years. But as Thailand's #1 cloud provider, we are actually very, very happy that we see the increased maturity of the usage of Thai companies of cloud services. Thai companies are starting to move from the fundamental cloud architecture to more of some of the advanced cloud architecture already. So in preparation for Thailand 4.0, we want to share this with you as well, okay? The first one is actually very easy, hypervisor. On a cloud standpoint, usually you have one hypervisor, right? But what happens with that hypervisor, if that one single hypervisor goes down, it's a single point of failure, so it goes down. It seems very simple, but when you start on cloud, you start very small. So you have a small investment. So you invest in one hypervisor, right? Now we see a trend of having multiple hypervisor clusters on that, okay? That's the first architecture we start to see, okay? Second architecture, again, very simple, a load balance architecture. We see a lot of companies that start very small. Their usage has increased, but they have not put the mechanisms in place to do a simple load balance. So they're starting to have performance issues. Again, this is a good thing because the maturity of the market is starting to grow, okay? So this is a simple load balancer architecture that we see in place, right? The third one is then basically in terms of maintenance. As we see the market continue to grow and mature, there needs to be basically a maintenance type of architecture, right? For those of you very familiar with VMware, it's very much like a vMotion approach. But sometimes we see a lot of people have not invested in this as well. So what ends up being, you have two physical servers, you copy one VM to the other VM, you redirect access to it, and you remove the other VM. That's it. Okay? The final architecture that we want to show you is basically the no downtime architecture as you move more and more critical services from on-premise to cloud, which is a dedicated, resilient, redundant pair. Okay? So in general, over the last 30 minutes, yeah, I hope you've had an understanding of what cloud security is. Yeah? In summary, cloud security is a mindset of asking the right questions and asking at the right time. But don't get stuck in just the security aspect. Also look at your architecture aspect. Because fundamentally, you are a business, and it requires investment. Okay? That said, it is possible for Thailand to achieve the 4.0 objective. But what's more important is your understanding of these concepts and how you apply them to your organization. So if you don't remember anything I said, okay, I said a lot, I know, I leave you with just one single final quote, okay, to take away. Watch out, in preparation for 4.0, watch out how you feel. For how you feel will determine what you think. Watch out what you think. For what you think will determine what you say. And watch out what is it you say. For what you say will determine what you do. Watch out what you do. For what you do will determine your personality. And watch out for your personality. For your personality will define your character. And watch out for your character will define your destiny. True IDC is Thailand's #1 data center provider and cloud service provider because we understand the key concepts of cloud security. My name is Supparat Sivapetchranat, Singhara na Ayutthaya. We have a booth outside if you need more help. ขอบคุณมากครับ